Welcome to the Creepin' It Real show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at The Creepin' It Real Show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com.
Hey creepers, Happy New Year! This is your host, Christy. I'm so excited, because I'm super excited to talk about Black Mirror, and I'm super excited to finally come back and hang with my host for an hour. How are you, Moni?
Yay, it's doing good. I mean, besides the fact that I got the Christy flu, because girl gets around, apparently. I've been dying of the plague, so apologies if I'm coughing on this podcast here, but super excited to be back and talk about what we're about to talk about. And happy to be talking to my two second favorite stable geniuses in the world. So, Yardley, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, and I think that little sick bug is probably going around. I'm getting over a little bit myself, but it's 2018, and what better way to bring it in than to talk some creeping at real topics. So I'm excited.
Sorry I'm such a skank, guys.
You
Hey, it is what it is.
Well, for anybody who doesn't know what Black Mirror is, it is a show based out of the UK primarily, but they do different countries. They even have a couple of US, Americans on there. It's basically a future look of what could happen with the abuse of technology. I mean, we've already seen this, the beginnings of that now, but it's more about what could happen in the future, and every single show is different. They all tell a different story. So
I would liken it to a modern day Twilight Zone.
Yes,
basically. Yep. And also, did you all know that the name Black Mirror, do you know where that comes from?
No.
It actually is supposed to represent your cell phone when it's off. Just a shiny, reflective black mirror.
Yeah.
So there's a little trivia for you.
Yeah. So we're going to spend most of this episode talking about, season 4 of Black Mirror, and then a little bit at the end talking about our overall favorites. But first, we're going to go into... we have a new movie trailer that we just all watched. What is it again, Moni? Now I'm losing my notes.
Slenderman?
Oh, yeah, Slenderman. So...
Yeah. Y'all know how I loves me some Slenderman.
Before I get into you guys' opinions on Slenderman, I have to ask, because y'all know I have an eye thing. What the hell, man? Just in the trailer alone, there's 2 eye things. There's one where some lady stabs her eye with a scalpel, and then at the end, there's an eyeball with a needle going in it, and I just, why? Like, can't you make scary without stabbing your eyeball? I can't. Oh, and I didn't know about that.
No, because you found it scary, so obviously it's working for someone.
I don't find it scary.
Yeah,
I find it, nauseating. It literally makes me sick to my stomach when I see stuff like that. It's not even, for me, scary. It's oh. So anyway, Yardley, what did you think about the trailer?
Well, from the things that I had ran about the Slenderman incident, I don't necessarily, when I watched the trailer, I didn't really get the sense that it's something that's kind of taken. You might give hints to the mythos, but it didn't really. I don't know how to say it. It just doesn't really seem like it matches up. It seems like they're taking liberties with something that wasn't really real to begin with. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but just watching the trailer in itself, if it was something that I could watch in my home, I would totally do it. I don't know if I would go to the theater to see it. However, with MoviePass, I can go and see it if I want to. So
shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly. But I saw the trailer, and a lot of the things that freaked out Christy, the eye thing, it seems like It has some at least half decent effects. I hope that wasn't the best that they have to offer what was in the trailer, but I would give it a chance. But if it wasn't for something like having the ability to be able to go to a theater and watch a movie once a day, I would definitely go and see it under those circumstances. But if I just had to pay to see it, I think I would probably pass and wait for to watch it like a home video. Yeah.
Okay, and I know what Moni loves. Well, she's kind of obsessed with Slenderman, so I know you're probably super excited to watch this, right?
Yeah, I don't know what is with me because Slenderman is really, a mythos for teenagers. And this is my birthday week, by the way, but apparently I'm turning like 14 because I'm just like, yay, Slenderman. But that being said, I hope that it's going to be rated R, which I seriously doubt it will be because the target audience is going to be teenagers. But watching the trailer, I think maybe what you're thinking, because what I was thinking too is Slenderman, the mythos is supposed to be that he makes other people, namely like young people, do bad things for him. And in the trailer, it makes it look more like Slenderman himself is coming after you. And I don't know that we need another kind of boogeyman in horror right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he's a very effective one either. I think it's more creepy to do the psychological aspect of someone who kind of takes a teenager and kind of pushes them to do something that they maybe wouldn't normally do. That being said, though, the very end of the trailer, they show that teenage girl walking out into the middle of a field, and there are police cars coming up to meet her. I thought that was kind of a neat scene I'm curious about because it is a little bit reminiscent of the movie Seven, where they come out to meet Brad Pitt, and he's like, "What's in the box, man?" And maybe Gwyneth Paltrow's head will be there. Who knows? Like, that might be kind of cool. So we'll just have to see. But I don't get out to the movies that often physically, just because I have young children and everything. So this one I'll also be waiting for. But that being said, if it's rated R, I'm definitely going to catch it at some point.
I love how you made the point that I made without sounding like a blubbering idiot, because I was totally trying to figure out a way to say that it didn't really match up necessarily with the mythos. But, the rug could get pulled up under us. So what about you, Christy? Is this...
Excuse me. I'm not really into like slasher films. I like things that mess with your head. I could be interested in this. At first, I was thinking, is this another Wolves at the Door thing where they're taking the real story and making it into a loosely weird movie? Or are they just taking the character and making their own movie? And I'm cool with them taking the character and making their own movie, but I really hate loosely based true stories. Like, if it's going to be based on the story, make it the story. If it's going to be based on just taking the character and doing your own thing, I'm good with that because I like, new and different things. I don't understand what Slenderman is. I'm not that educated on... I know about what happened with the girls that stabbed their friend, and they said it was
You
Slenderman.
mean you're not a teenage girl, so you're not into the whole Slenderman?
In concept, I can understand why it could be scary. It could be scary. I'm willing to give it a chance. We'll see what happens. I definitely won't be going to the movies for it, but I have older kids. I could take them. They'd probably actually like to see it. Maybe they could con me into taking them, but I just don't go to the movies unless it's a movie that's got tons of action or special effects that I want to see on a screen like that size, and I'm willing to pay the price for... it's not just the movie, it's the popcorn. And if you go to the ones that have basically dinner and, a movie, then you're paying like $50 to eat, and even popcorn's $50 these days. So
and then
I'm a
for
cheap
a
ass.
Movie,
yeah,
sure.
So it's got to have really good effects. Not even like feel-good movies of the year do I want to watch on the movies anymore. So I'll wait. I'm pretty good. We have... a lot of different apps and stuff that the second it gets released, we can see it on TV. So, and they just don't have, or not, we can see it at home. And they, when you have a movie out, remember it used to take, when the movie came out in the theaters, it used to take like a year before it would be released on VHS. And everybody wanted to go to the movies. They didn't want to wait that long. Well, now it's just a few months. And
even that annoys me.
Yeah. And now it's cheaper to just wait a few months and watch it at home. So, and we got better quality systems now. It's basically like a freaking movie theater. So I'm a cheap ass that way, but I love me some horror. So I'm going to watch it. I'm just interested to see what what the concept's going to be. And like Yardley said, is all the best stuff in the trailer? I don't know. But so yeah, we'll see what happens.
So cut to a year from now, it'll probably be the shitty movie that Moni picks for us to watch for the podcast. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. We should definitely follow up on this. We should just watch it and follow up on it. The same thing with Winchester.
Yes. I'm interested in Winchester, so I might actually go see that in the theaters because, I mean, it's got Helen Mirren in it. I mean, I'm sorry, but if she's in it, that's kind of, I feel like I have to go see it because I love her.
Well, that's early February, too, right? That's coming out pretty soon?
Yeah, I think it's February 6th or February 3rd?
That first weekend in February.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I think it's the week, gosh, I don't know. It seems like February and March, even though not necessarily there's a ton of horror coming out, but February and March is going to be huge. You're going to have the Winchester movie, and I think the week after that is Black Panther, and then you've got the Infinity War after that, and then you've got then the Han Solo movie in March as well. So the next 2 months are going to be pretty good movie going.
Isn't that kind of unusual or not? Like
Yardley, for movies, just FYI, if you start this week, so you have to have already started, watch each of the Marvel movies in order. By the time the Infinity Wars comes out, you'll be completely caught up and ready to watch it. Like it actually goes sequential every single week up until Infinity Wars.
Ah, that's awesome. So just one movie a week.
Yep, that's your homework for until that movie comes out.
The nerd homework.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're actually working on. Sometimes we don't get to one in a week, so we'll do like two. So we started before the new year, but yeah, we need to get Iron Man 2 next.
All right, well, awesome. That's another challenge to keep me from doing the things that I probably really need to be doing. That's what's up.
Speaking of movies, I wanted to ask you guys, since it's now 2018, way back in 2017, what would you consider your favorite movie of the year in 2017, Moni?
Well, favorite overall movie, nothing's really sticking out, but it's 8 a.m. here. It was a really great movie, although that wasn't a surprise to me that I was going to enjoy that film. And I think that we would all agree that it was a smash success film. And even if I think a lot of people, some people didn't find that scary, which I did find it scary. But I think that movie had humor. And, as we talked about when we actually reviewed it on our podcast here, that movie pretty much hit every chord. And I think it was one of the most well done films that I had the pleasure of seeing in 2017.
Yeah. Yardley?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to say It the movie, and I'm going to take the opposite kind of outlook on the movie. I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. I went in with an open mind. I thought that it would be okay, but I thought that they really did do a good job, and it kind of gave me faith that it is, it's at least possible to kind of take some older material and bring it back and do it in a way that not only allows the directors and the writers to take their own liberties, but it kind of respects the source material, but they present it in a way where moviegoers who don't necessarily read the source material can jump right in and enjoy the movie as well. Because I think a lot of us who talk about movies and TV shows and comic books and all of this other types of stuff, we seem to forget that we are the minority, and the overwhelming majority of people don't care. So when people address things in a movie, they can't necessarily do everything that the fanboys and fangirls would like, but they have to present it in a manner, for the people who bring in the most money to enjoy it. And I think that it gave everybody a little bit of something that they could enjoy. So they've definitely got my interest piqued, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do next. And I don't necessarily say that in terms of a horror movie, that I'm excited to go back to a theater and actually see a horror movie. So for those reasons alone, I'm going to check it off as it covering all the bases.
Yeah, I have to say that I completely agree with both of you about it. For me, because I'm such a Stephen King nerd, that his stories are just classic. I mean, they stand the test of time. I wish the people that did it would take more of his stories and try them, because it's the first time in a long time that I've seen one of his absolute horror stories be so well done. It's a nightmare when I go back and try to watch a lot of the others, because, it got me so excited. Well, maybe I'm older, and if I go back and watch these other, Stephen King movies, I'll see it differently. And no, they're just garbage. They just couldn't capture the spirit of what Stephen King is. I mean, he is so all about getting in your head with all of his stories that I think people struggle with putting that out on film. So I would love to see the people that took this movie and tackle the others, but I don't know if
this
we're
is
gonna
kind
get
of a curveball. I didn't provide the link, but that just reminded me they're going to do a sequel to The Shining, and it's going to cover Danny, who's now, the son, who's now an older alcoholic, facing a young girl who has the shine or whatever,
Really?
the same as he did. Yeah.
Wow. Now that'll
So
be
I hope they
interesting.
do a nice job the way that they did with the It movie. And even the Shining movie is one of the rare examples of King done well. But, the source material exists and it's wonderful. So hopefully they do a good job.
But that isn't based on anything that Stephen King wrote, is it? Or is it like something that he did a little... Because sometimes he'll write just a quick short story and throw it out there and publish it just online and it not even be in a book. So I'm wondering if it's coming from Stephen King or if they're just taking it and telling the story on their own.
Talk amongst yourselves and I will look that up and have an answer.
Well, I'll get to my other favorite because I have a tie for last year. And, with it, I've only seen it once because it did come out, was just released. We have a copy of it, but I just haven't got to watching it yet. But I have to say that Get Out was I absolutely adored it. It was so fucked up. And I've watched it 5 times this year. And I watched it New Year's Eve day because I thought to myself, I've been bitching and moaning on my social media, but I broke my foot a couple of weeks ago and I have literally been bedridden since because I cannot put weight on it. And I suck with crutches. I've fallen several times on my crutches because I'm so impatient to get places I fall, and it's really ridiculous. So my husband's just like, get in the bed and do not get out. And I have been working from the bed. I have been watching movies from here. I'm working right now from our bed. So I watched it on New Year's Eve day knowing that I was going to ask this question. I mean, New Year's Eve day. And again, I thought the concept was groundbreaking. I thought the writing, it was amazing. It's parts of it are so bizarre. You're kind of laughing because you're just, before you know what's happening, what the real concept, what the real part of the movie is, you're watching all this odd behavior and you're just thinking, what in the hell's going on? But once everything's revealed, I mean, what a freaking crazy and brilliant concept. And I would love to see a part 2. I haven't looked deep enough to know if they're going to make one, but just that there's possibly other kind of groups like that out there. I think that's pretty possible. And to see what else they could do with it, because I adored that movie. My kids love it too. It's one of their favorites. So I got to say, I knew I'd love it because I love Stephen King, but Get Out was surprising to me because I didn't see a lot of trailers at the beginning before it came out, and then I went to the movies and watched it and just was blown away. So gotta definitely put Get Out up there as well.
That sounds awesome. And I have your answer for the Shining sequel, which I should really have my librarian card pulled this morning because I absolutely knew there was a sequel and my brain just wasn't working. So Stephen King wrote Doctor Sleep, which is the Shining sequel.
Yes. I forgot about that.
Which follows Jack's son, Danny. And it looks like it is going to be adapted into a film. The Oscar winner, Akiva Goldsman of A Beautiful Mind fame, will write the screenplay. Stephen King will executive produce, but a director has yet to be named, and they don't have a release date as of yet.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to just go ahead and say in advance that as we now tackle Black Mirror, I'm putting no time limit on this because I want us to talk in depth as much as we want about the show, the seasons, shows that really stand out to us, and not worry about being rushed, or because this is probably going to be my favorite episode because I am absolutely obsessed with Black Mirror. Really quick backstory. A friend of mine recommended it to me, gosh, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And he knew about it because his brother is an actor. We all went to high school together, and I went to high school with his actor brother. And he's it's James Marsden. I call him Jimmy because that's his name. That was his name in high school. And I'm friends with one of his brothers. He has a few brothers. And this guy knows I really like fucked up stuff. So he texted me a year and a half ago and asked me if I was watching Westworld, Jimmy's show, and then also told me, you have to watch Black Mirror. And so, I had Netflix. I got on there, and the first episode, it just completely blew me away. And at the time, when I watched the first episode, I didn't know anything about the show, and I didn't know it was all different stories. So I'm thinking, how in the hell do you go from there? Because everybody knows what happens at the first episode. And it just sucked me in. I have gotten so many people addicted to this show because literally all I talk about. So I'm so excited for us to break down these shows. And like I said, we have carte blanche to talk about it as long as we want. So we already talked about, basically the premises of Black Mirror is abuse of technology and the dark things that can come from it. And I just wanted to, first, I wanted to ask Yardley, for season 4, what's your standout episodes?
Probably, well, for me, I thought that my favorite was Crocodile, and then USS Callister. And reluctantly, I'm going to say that Archangel was my third favorite. I thought that the front end, at least for me, were the strongest episodes. Mm-hmm. And then, so I would probably say 1 Crocodile, 2 USS Callister, 3 Archangel. 4th, Hang the DJ. Wasn't too thrilled with Metalhead. And full disclosure, I did not finish Black Museum.
Oh my God. That was the best one? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I probably got a quarter through it. And the reason why is when we were kind of texting each other, talking about, that we were going to do season 4, I ended up watching, for some reason, because, this series started so long ago, and I couldn't really remember things. So I actually watched all of season 3, thinking it was season 4. Because I hadn't saw it previously, because I had sent the text message saying, hey, were you talking about season 3? Because I caught, my little kerfuffle or whatever. But anyway, to make a long story short, so I kind of binged all of these, and today I started watching Black Museum, and it seemed interesting, but I probably only got 10 minutes through it.
Got it. Well, you're going to have to finish that one, because it was one of my personal favorites. But, so you said you liked Crocodile. Why do you think Crocodile is one of your favorites? And I noticed that even overall you liked, out of all the entire, series, you loved it.
Well, I like the premise of it. Just whenever you looked at that episode and you saw what happened at the beginning, it's one of those things where you kind of felt for the character of Mia and that predicament of going along with getting rid of the body of the biker who was killed. So you kind of felt for her, but at the same time, I think any of us as viewers were also saying, in this situation, you just have to report it, accident or whatever. Whenever you do something like that, you kind of make the problem, at least internally, if you're a person with a conscience, you make it a lot bigger by trying to cover something up that, quite honestly, I don't know. I think that's something that they could have gotten out of. You know what I mean? Because they would feel bad. So when you look at that extreme to where that little bit of a lie, or that huge lie that they told and what they did, and then a lot of time goes by, and then one of the two people who were involved starts feeling a certain way about it, and of course the other person is successful and they've got all of these things going for them, and they've let that slide. And then, of course, there's always a person where things haven't been going too good for them. That's the one that's having the conscience.
Right.
And then it just starts steamrolling. It's like, okay, you're going to ruin my life if you write this anonymous letter. So then you end up killing that person to cover up a lie. So now you have a second huge lie to cover up. And then that leads to you, ending up going on this murder spree. So the person who you had empathy for at the beginning ends up being the person that you hate the most. And we know what she did at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. If you have a person, if you want to make them irredeemable and bad, you have them kill children. You know what I mean? And,
exactly. Yeah.
And then the twist with the kid, that the kid was blind, and then they get the information. Yeah. I just thought that whole thing, I thought that it was genius. And the fact that the end was left open-ended for the viewer to kind of make up whatever kind of ending that they wanted to happen to this woman. So for me, I just thought that the strength of that particular one, it kind of pulled me in the most. And of course, I'm a geek. The USS Callister idea was pretty awesome, and it was actually well executed. And I'll just say that one of my main highlights of that were little subtle things. Just I think my favorite part of that episode was probably just them trying to explain to the newbie, so to speak, where she was, what was going on, and then they cleverly made it believable how she would start, believing that she was in that situation. So overall, the season was strong, but definitely Crocodile was my favorite.
So in Crocodile, excuse me, God, I'm like all kinds of gunk, but I this is why I love us all picking out our favorites, because first I thought the cinematography in Crocodile was absolutely breathtaking. It was beautiful. I actually Googled in the middle of watching it where this was filmed. It's filmed in Iceland. And, oh my gosh, just breathtaking. I mean, where are they? I mean, they look like they're on a freaking glacier, which they kind of were. So it was just gorgeous. And it was my least favorite of the season. But then sitting here listening to you describe it and how what you took away from it has it changes your, outlook a little bit. First of all, every single episode this season, I absolutely adored. It would be like when I had to pick my favorites, it was like picking my favorite child. So when I say it was my least favorite, I mean that I still loved it. It just wasn't for me when I walked away from the entire series, the entire season. It wasn't the one that really stuck with me. So I love us breaking down our favorites, because now we can understand and see it a little differently than what we originally saw and thought ourselves. So that's why I'm excited about us doing this. Moni, what did you think of Crocodile?
Crocodile, actually, similar to you, Christy, was pretty much my least favorite, but also hearing Yardley talk about it makes me like it a little bit more, kind of brings it up in my opinion. But for Black Mirror, I agree. Every single episode, there was not a bad one in the mix.
No.
But for Black Mirror, I just felt like it was the most pedestrian. It was the most normal, as far as it kind of felt like an updated I Know What You Did Last Summer, where two people have this big secret and then it just kind of escalates. But they added the technology and, of course, the brilliant twist at the end with the blind child. And that was a really great twist. But again, I just feel like some version of that has been done many times, many ways. And just because they did it better doesn't make it my favorite Black Mirror episode.
Right. And as much as Yardley likes the open ending part, that bugged me. I was really, really kind of captivated until the end. And then I'm like, huh? Like, that's it? That's how it ends? And I actually read the producer or the director, John Hillcoat, talking about this episode, because you had so many people bitching about that, and that was the actual point of him doing that, is for you to take it and make it with what you will, like what's next, what's going to happen next to this girl. And some people don't want that. Some people want to be told what to think and how it ends, and like Yardley doesn't. Yardley wants to have that open ending of how it all ends. There's no bow. It's not, neatly wrapped little package. It's, that's it.
Well, at least for me, in my head, in the circumstances that led up to what we saw at the end, I mean, I think most people who are watching it, if you kind of had your way to end it, you're going to hope that the authorities come in there, totally embarrass her, drag her out of there, and then, she pays for her crimes. I think that's the way, at least in my mind, that it was going to go. But for me, just the fact that there was so much tension in that moment of her just looking over her shoulder, knowing that it's over for her, that gave me enough, so if you were watching it and she got executed right there in front of her kids, in front of the kids, hey, that's the ending for you.
I want her executed Black Museum style, which, Yardley, when you watch that, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. But I thought it was hysterical, and I really did get a good laugh at the fact that she got busted by a guinea pig. Like, a fucking guinea pig busted her.
but that's what was so great about it, is that nobody really considered that was necessarily an option. It just goes to show you that even when you do, I'm using air quotes here, the perfect crimes, there's always something that you overlook, and if I was in her situation, I probably, but then again, at the same time, when you have in your head that you might have to murder a child to get away with something, I probably would not have noticed the guinea pig, to the left either, because you're so fixated on all of these horrendous things that you've done, and now you have to even do something even more extreme. Like I said, children are just off limits. You're kind of irredeemable when you mess with them, and like I said, the whole twist about the kid being blind, I kind of thought that was genius.
Yeah, I agree. It was good. It was a good concept, and I thought, they're all good. That's why I hate, even bagging on it. It was a great episode in itself. So, all right. Well, I knew when I watched this season, Yardley, I knew the second I saw USS Callister, I knew that I thought that was going to be your overall favorite. Judging by a lot of the people who watch this online, it's theirs, 100%. This is the standout episode of the entire series. People are going nuts over this one. They absolutely adored it. I liked it. I thought it was so clever. I loved the such over-exaggeration of the typical Star Trek character. They had where he's kissing the girls at the end when he beats the bad guys. So, but I knew after I watched that, this is going to be Yardley's favorite. So what made that your favorite episode?
Well, the USS Callister, I thought that it was great. There are a few points, I actually put in the show notes, there was kind of a cat and a mouse nature to the episode. You've got the people who are seemingly in a situation that is going to be impossible for them to get out of. But throughout the episode, of course, they kind of use their brains, and then they have to kind of, knuckle up and decide, are you going to take this chance when you know that the repercussions of things failing, which is most likely, are going to be just astronomical. And I love, people being put in situations that you really have to show some fortitude and some courage to get out of. And I thought that they checked that box. I thought the pacing was great. I actually loved the character interactions. And once again, the Nanette Cole character,
she was great.
They were trying to, explain to her, what the situation was, where she was, what's going on. And I think in a situation like that, I thought that they used comedy very good, to kind of let her know that, hey, this is a big deal. Right now, you don't think that that's the case, but it is. I love Robert Daly's character, the guy who played the chief technical officer and the co-founder of Callister Inc., which was the place that they worked doing that coding. I thought that he was a great character, but something that I thought that this story was kind of lacking was, I think that we should have gotten more backstory as to why this guy would go to such extremes to put the other characters in those situations. I think that we know that he didn't get treated well. We found that out through one of the major characters that made a huge sacrifice at the end of the episode, that, hey, he should have treated him better and all of these things. But that was necessarily something that they hammered home, because I'm like, man, you know what? Some of the excuses that they gave as to why they were brought into that world. One guy was saying he thinks he tripped them, and then I think the black girl was saying something about, he's a looker or something like that.
Right.
But those are this petty shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why? Why would this guy be, on that level for just stuff like that? So I thought the exposition was horrendous.
I think what's interesting about this, and you see it in a lot of other episodes and other seasons before this, of the downloading of and the copying the DNA consciousness and putting it in, how it becomes its own person. That they think they are the person that they are. They're really not the person. They're just a copy. So when they show up on the ship, first of all, they're really not a person. They're in a cloud, and it's just a virtual version of who you are. So your person out in the real world has no idea that there's a copy of them stuck in the Star Trek ship, and doesn't know that they're not the person. And you see that in, I think it was White Christmas, same thing, where this guy downloads, it's, the very beginning of this actual technology that Robert Daly is now doing. And he's a huge, computer nerd. He's the main brain behind his company. But then he's got his partner who's kind of the sales people person, and he's this creepy, kind of quiet, keeps to himself, introvert, who kind of sits in his office and just stares at everybody from his window, creeps people out. And I think his feelings and his behavior on the USS Callister is all these years of suppressed anger and bitterness about not being able to be like his partner, plus being treated the way that he's treated. He's treated like a joke. He's treated like a dog. He's treated like, not respected like he should be. And that's kind of the reason why I thought he behaved the way that he did. And I also have to ask you, do you think that he knows that, I think he does, that these are people that think they're people. They're not just, they don't realize they're just a copy of their person, that they're actually show up on the ship and think and remember everything up until they were downloaded on the ship. And so I just wondered that. You think he realizes that?
You're asking me if the people that were brought, into that program or whatever, you're asking me if they know that that's the case?
No, if he knows that. Like, does he know because he has to take their DNA and make a copy of it and upload it onto this cloud, and then they show up on this ship. And I'm assuming he knows that when they show up, they think that they're a person. They don't realize they're just a copy in a computer cloud somewhere.
Oh, you're wondering if he knows that they know that they're copies in the thing. Is that what you're saying?
Does he know that? Because it's kind of like, yes, if you want to look at it, that they're really not real. So, but they think they're real. And so watching him, it's kind of like he's torturing them. Is he that bad of a man that he gets off torturing these people who think they're people? They're really not, but they think they are. And it just kind of was bizarre to me, because I watched White Christmas after this, and it's the same concept, that you download a person and you put them in a machine and they think that they're real, and systematically breaking down to get them to do what you need them to do.
Well, remember that those characters do know that they're copies, because remember, she was explaining to Nanette Cole that out there they don't know what's going on.
Right.
She was the one who explained, so she,
But we're asking if he knows that, and I'd like to weigh in and say,
I think he does.
He absolutely does.
He does know. Yeah.
And that's kind
because
of
I think that's part of his whole God complex, and what he gets off on is that
exactly.
He, as far as exposition, I thought, this is a man who probably was picked on as a kid for being nerdy, but probably has either seen himself as or actually is smarter than everyone that he knows, but doesn't have that charisma of the sales guy, his partner, doesn't get the chicks, doesn't get any of the glory, is always just the behind the scenes idea guy. And to you and I, who don't have enormous egos or have huge chips on our shoulders, it is petty shit, the stuff that happens at his company. But to him, it's a culmination of his whole life of people not basically bowing down to his enormous ego. And he has this opportunity now to make his own world, to make his own universe, and make everyone do what he wants them to do. And I think he jumps on it, and I think he knows that it's hard for them, and I think he likes that it's hard for them because it makes it, to them, the same kind of torture that he feels like he's getting in real life.
I feel so sad for people like that, because as a person who knows that you can get chicks without money, I know that this smart guy has a little bit of cash and he can't get chicks, so poor him. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
He's
got to create his own world. But now this is interesting that you bring that up, because I see on your notes, and I laughed when I read this, because you're right. You don't know about the let's go for a swim would be effective for him in that because let's realize he created this fantasy world, and they're created like Barbies. Like, they even show you they have no genitalia. So he made them without genitalia. And then, like you said, she coaxes him into a lake so they can because they're, doing an escape plan. Right. And he buys it. I guess, don't you think maybe he bought it because he's getting attention from a woman, and that's just not what normally happens?
Yes, but she took a big risk in doing that, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, she was brilliant. She's fantastic. I mean, he met his match, plain and simple. Yeah. He downloaded the wrong chick. Let's just say that, You've got a marketing person, you've got a receptionist, you've got your partner who doesn't know shit about technology. He's just the face of the company. None of those people knew how to get out of this mess, but she did. So he just fucked with the wrong person.
I mean, you're right, because most guys would have been like, you didn't give me the let's go for a swim look when you was asking to come along on this on this little trek. But I thought that it was awesome, the way that they executed most of the things, though, because you really did. There were certain parts where you kind of had a lot of anxiety about, man, are they, this is Black Mirror, like, who knows if they're going to get out of it. I think the only person who really, at the end of the day, probably got the worst of it, and I can't remember his name. What was the guy who sacrificed himself when the engine?
I don't know his name, but he's the partner with the kid. Oh my God. I was going to bring that up. Oh, that God, it's awful.
Well, what was sad about it is the way that this whole, the way that the scene was made up is I think he's supposed to be in like a perpetual cycle of being in that moment of getting burned up, like, forever.
Yeah.
Like that's which totally sucks, because I think some people would think that with the speech that he gave, basically saying that how sorry he was about how he treated Robert, but the fact that he brought his kid into that situation, fuck him. I don't think that him making that sacrifice was necessarily him trying to be redeemed in any kind of way, because, of course, when you're in, I guess, eternal pain, he wouldn't know that everybody would appreciate it anyway. But I think the fact that he was just willing to go through that, mainly because that was how strongly that he felt about a copy of his kid. I thought that was some pretty awesome sacrifice to make.
Yeah, I mean, cool. I as a parent, that was really heartbreaking to me, because in the real life, you kind of hate this guy. He's kind of a dick. He makes fun of the main character, and you don't like him. But then once you get on the ship and you see, I mean, there's just a threshold of not liking somebody, okay, because they're a dick, but then to actually take something and mind fuck you so badly that he took this partner's DNA, kid's DNA, and uploaded it into the cloud for the ship just to torture his partner by killing the kid, and he could do it as many times. And then this kid, once downloaded up to the cloud, doesn't understand that he's not real. That would be heartbreaking as a parent, and it just really that's when you really start hating the main character. Robert, because yeah, he's a dick and he's fucking with these people, but then you really see he's not just doing that, he's torturing them. Is just shocking to me because
well Moni, I just want to ask Moni something. I know that you were a fan of Breaking Bad, right? So, I mean, was I the only one that, whenever I see that guy's face, all I see is Todd. So off the jump, he was an asshole anyway. You know what I mean? Because remember, the character that he played in Breaking Bad killed the kid.
That's true.
So it's
like automatic asshole card being played.
Just
right
like
there.
that guy.
Oh my god! He's one of those guys who's
Bad
always tired of being an asshole.
Sorry. Speaking of Breaking Bad references, did you all recognize Aaron Paul's voice in the very end of this episode?
Oh,
when they're getting out and she's like, "Hey, this other ship is coming. Let's ask him." And they said, "Do you have anything to trade? Or are we going to suck each other off?" Or what?
Yeah,
that was Aaron Paul.
That's hysterical. I remember that. I didn't realize it was him.
Yeah, my husband's like, listen, you'll recognize this voice. I'm like, who the heck is this? He's like, it's Aaron Paul.
Well, I also got to say, before we move on to the next episode, I became a creeper doing research for trying to figure out which would be my favorite episode. I got onto IMDb and looked up all the characters of this episode and went on to Facebook, Instagram, and followed a lot of them. And it's so fun to go back because, a lot of these actors this is kind of a breakout role for them. They maybe were struggling or they just weren't really well known. And going in and seeing, following them on Instagram and watching them share photos of some of the production, but they weren't allowed to say what it was. They could only, because it's Black Mirror and they pretty much keep it pretty under wraps what the episodes are going to be about, but they were allowed to do a few sneak peeks and they couldn't say what the name of the episode was going to be or anything. And just watching the sneak peeks and watching their followers just rise at epic proportions through just in a week. When I would go back and look at some of now they're getting, fan art and all kinds. I mean, they are forever going to be known as, these characters for some people because it is such a cult hit. Everybody loves this one. It is, and I loved it too. It wasn't my favorite, but I can understand why it would be people's favorites. So I loved watching them, their fame, their name kind of rise so quickly just based on this one episode of one show. I mean, not a movie, So I just thought that was really cool. And to go back and watch them Instagram pictures of when they were actually making this episode. So anyway, I just thought that was really great. So I'm glad that it was one of our favorites because I really wanted to talk about it. So good. Thanks, Yardley. Moni, now you did not post what your favorites were, so I'm curious to hear. I don't know if you did that on purpose or you just didn't feel like it or what. So I'm anxious to hear what your overall favorites were.
Hang the DJ was a beautiful episode. And as much as I have the stomach for dark things and unhappy things that happen, I think that, like that one, Fanny Nipero from season 3, those were just both so beautiful, and then they stay with you in a nice way, unlike season 1, episode 1, the national anthem, which if you can make it past that episode, you can watch Black Mirror in entirety, but like... that episode is still stuck in my head.
Before we break down Hang the DJ, because really quick, did you put it in one of your overalls?
Yeah, yes. Still on the bottom of the
so we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it on the overall picks. But if we weren't going to do that, I want to do a quick synopsis of what is the premises of that show because it is shocking. But we'll do it at the end. So, all right, Hang the DJ, Moni. Why did that one, besides it being so similar to San Junipero, what was it that made it also stick out to you?
I really thought, it was a really cool concept, right? With the whole Basically, couples having to be dictated by like this little device basically that tells them not only who they're going to go out on a date with, a blind date no less, but also how long the date is going to last. And being Black Mirror, and that's, I think Yardley kind of said that too, being Black Mirror, you never know, like, the most sinister, like, way beyond what's the most fucked up thing you could think of thing could possibly occur. And so at a certain point that this couple that you're rooting for stops kind of listening to the little electronic voice and decides to, like, not check how long they're supposed to stay together, and decides to defy the whole system, you're really expecting a horrible death, or they're going to be stuck in some kind of like torture and electronic perpetuity. Like there's something horrible is going to happen to them. But instead, you know, that the system keeps advertising that they are 99.8% effective or something like that in finding your perfect match. And it turns out that's because that's the number of people who have found their perfect match who have actually made an act of defiance going against the system in order to be together.
Right. It's another version, a happier version of USS Callister. I mean, they take their subconscious or whatever piece of them, however this works, and they put them in different scenarios in a system, however many times as a couple, and however many times they buck the system to stay together is the success rate of the relationship, I guess. Isn't that kind of what you got from it?
Yeah. And I really... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. And then at the end, you get your actual people meeting, knowing that they are supposed to be together, because I thought it was 98.9 or 99.8, yeah, whichever, but that they know... They haven't even met yet. I'm assuming they know then that this is their person. That almost. But
you
100%.
Have to take that extra act of defying the system in order to actually. That's so scary. Like, can you imagine? That's kind of showing the bravery of putting yourself out there for love. Is like the system has found this person for you, but your feelings towards this person have to be real enough that you're willing to go that extra step and say, this thing could have us killed, this thing could have us imprisoned, but we're going to, buck all of that to try to be together.
Yep.
And it ends up paying off, and you get the love of your life out of it.
Yes. And
I really like the satire that it gives on, like, online dating. Not that there's anything wrong with online dating, but I like the satire it gives on that whole system where it's like this other person, throughout we see them each dating other people. And these other people seem like they would be perfect for them on paper. The woman meets someone who's really gorgeous, and she's like, wow, I hope this is him, and it turns out that, even though if you were to write down all the traits you want in the perfect mate, it's just they're not happy together in the months that they're forced to stay together.
Right.
And yet this goofy, kind of more average-looking guy turns out to be the person who makes her happiest.
Right. And the thing is these, like, we think... At the beginning, before you realize it's a simulation of the people in a cloud versus the actual people, you think, oh my God, these people have to stay together for a year. Even though they're not into each other, they have to. Because that's what the system's telling them. They have to stay together. But in reality, it's a second. In reality, it's not really a year. It's only a second. But at the time when you're watching the show, you think... These people are having to stay together for a year? Are you freaking kidding me?
But then also, don't we do that in life? It's like you get with somebody who isn't the right match for you, and maybe you start off a little happy, or again, it seems right on paper, and then you suffer through it for months, sometimes even years, and it's not the right match, and yet you do it for whatever reason you do it. And you learn a lot about what you do and don't want, and maybe hopefully learn something about yourself so that you're ready for a better match in the future.
Exactly. But the best part for these people is they don't really have to do that. They're not, they mate after copies of them have gone through all the crap that you normally would have to go through. They, the computer does it for them and then just skips all that crap and goes, here you go, here's your person. And so here's the question. Because of that, and because they don't have to go through all the crap that you go through when you're dating, do you take this relationship for granted, or is because it's your soulmate, you don't? I wished I had a little more insight to what the real people in the real world do after all you've been coupled with your soulmate, you know?
That's true, because I think there's still a chance that it couldn't work out. You know what I mean?
Because
at the end of the day, I don't think it guarantees it.
I mean, the only reason why I'm with who I'm with is because I went through the years of being with other people and knowing this isn't a person for me. I mean, yeah, somebody could say, put him in front of me and say, this is your soulmate, trust me, you know, we know you did all this, you risked your life to be with this person, and I could be like, awesome. I wonder what that would make me. Would I still be me because of the person's my soulmate, or would I be a different type of person because I didn't have to go through all the shit that I've gone through to find the person? So that was kind of like a big question that I had after the episode, and I started thinking about it, because that's what I love about these shows. They make you think. So if this was you, what would you do in this situation? So I thought that was kind of an open-ended, like, is it gonna be you? Really you? I don't know. So what do you think, Moni?
Think that's the risk you take, but you know, they keep getting told over and over to trust the system.
Yeah.
And at the one point when they try to defy the system is where it actually ends up working the most for them. So
right. But they don't know they've defied the system. That's the thing. Like, they don't know, or do they? That's the question.
Remember, don't they jump over the fence or whatever, and
but
you don't know what's going to be over there?
But that's not them. They don't know they did that. That was a simulation of them. So all out of, like, say 100 times they put this couple together, 98.9 times the couple bucked the system and the computer and against all odds, risked everything in their lives to be together. So then they pair them together at the end in real life. I wonder, do they know that they bucked the system this many times to be together in the simulation? Or if then the dating agency just says, okay, this is your person, your forever person in real life, do they know? Because they don't, or do they know what happened? It's just, that was kind of the open-ended question I had.
I would assume they would have memories of what had happened in there. I don't know.
You don't. You're not.
Wait,
that's not you.
I think that they mentioned towards the end, when they got that few minutes to say goodbye before they were paired off with someone else. I think that one of the things that she brought up was the fact that they're not remembering what happened. Because remember, she asked them, "Do you even remember what happened on your ride here or something?"
Right?
Didn't that happen, or am I?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Yeah, they don't have,
I believe that happened.
Maybe I've been in there.
They don't have. So my thing is, I thought these were just simulations like USS Callister. So they take their consciousness, download it up to the cloud, and it becomes a whole new person and a whole different life. You know, they create like a matrix around them and put them together to see what they'll do. And they do this so many times with so many different copies. And that's how they find their couple, their pair. And from what I can tell, once they're in the cloud, they're their whole other entity. Your conscious mind in reality doesn't know. This is a whole separate other person, almost like living in the cloud, doing and experiencing its own things. Is that? I don't know. That's kind of what my question was about Hang the DJ. I loved this episode. I just wondered, that's not really them. That's just a simulation of them, done several different times in different situations. 90, if you said 100 times in a computer world, and after that, and they buck the system that many times, then they throw them together in the real world, which was the ending, I'm assuming. Is that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I know
pretty
for
sure
me,
my head's gonna explode.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I know for me that one was, like, I thought all of the episodes were solid. That one was, Hang the DJ was one of my least favorites, just mainly because a lot of times when I'm watching these Black Mirror episodes or just shows in general, something that really brings me into something and makes me kind of feel for the characters, blah, 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 is stakes. And I just don't feel like in that episode, it just didn't have the stakes that the other episodes had.
Right.
So I wasn't as drawn in. And it was also an episode where I kind of felt like I kind of knew at the end of the day that those two characters were going to be together. Like, there was no doubt that somehow it was going to work out.
Right.
So I never really felt like, no matter what these characters went through, I just knew it somehow, some way that it was going to work out. And they actually gave hints to kind of what was going to happen at the end a little bit earlier, in the episode. So even though it wasn't, the one that landed with me the most, I still thought on its own it's a solid episode, but I just need some higher stakes going on.
It was good. I liked it. I just, like I said, I had all these questions, and so it was, you had in San Junipero at the end, you kind of understand that they're in this, we will definitely be talking about that at the end, but you had this other world they were being inserted into, whereas this one, it's not really clear at the end if that was another, like a simulation before, and then now it was kind of reversed. San Junipero is from what I got by it, where the unreal world that these couples were in, that was just their consciousness in a cloud, doing and going over and over and over again, different types of scenarios with this couple of, if they're going to be together. And then at the end, then it's the real world, and they're really, that's really them. So that's kind of what I thought it was, like a reverse San Junipero. So I don't know. I thought it was good.
No, I thought it was a nice change of pace from the darkness of the other episodes, which again, I don't mind darkness, but I just liked this bright spot in the series for this season.
Yeah, I mean, and even in itself, it at the time was dark, but it had a happy ending. And the first season of Black Mirror, they didn't really have one of these, but then I think by season 3 they decided to put in a happy thing, because that's when you had San Junipero, and then again they decided to do it again, of course, because San Junipero is it's by far going to go down again as one of the best of the season, for everybody loves it. I'm not season, but series. So it was very much kind of a callback to that one. So I'm glad you put that one in there too, because it was one of my favorites. Do you have another one that you think, Moni, or no? Is that your overall?
Well, what's funny is I actually really liked the Metalhead episode. I know a lot of people didn't. Archangel, I don't know if I could choose between them. Archangel fucked me up as a mom.
Yeah.
Because of the, my husband was like, it's a challenge against the use of technology, and I didn't necessarily see Archangel that way. I saw it more as a cautionary about not talking to your kids at all either.
Right.
But Metalhead, I felt like, being in black and white, first of all, stylistically, it was a beautiful episode. And I know it was a lot of people's least favorite. I know Yardley also mentioned it wasn't among his favorites. But that one, I felt like, I'm a huge fan of the Terminator series. I've mentioned that, well, the original two anyway. I've mentioned that here. And I feel like the Metalhead episode was everything that Terminator should have continued on to kind of be, is how, the humans are trying to survive in the world where these metal monsters are basically still lingering around. And I liked the gratuitous violence. It was fun. And I liked the challenge of seeing, this little bit of hope of what it is at the end that they're trying to actually get to with the teddy bears. And a little bit of arrogance maybe in that, maybe they haven't seen a dog in a long time and they feel like they're relatively safe and going out and trying to bring some hope back to their where they're living, and instead they end up in this situation where you end up having to kill yourself because this nasty thing came after you.
It's just not going to stop. Yeah, and that's This was my favorite. I had two favorites. This episode fucked me up. It just got in my head so horribly, and I couldn't figure out why. And I agree with you. I loved the black and white. I thought that was so just different. I mean, it's such a change of pace. I thought it really captured the concept of this entire show. Just this bleak time where humans are struggling to stay alive and survive and not be annihilated by robots. I know Yardley wasn't a big fan of the actual robot, but I thought it was creepy as hell because it looked kind of like a dog, but it also to me looked like a cockroach, which I fucking hate cockroaches. So I love dogs and hate cockroaches. So to mix those two together really messed with my head. I'd be like, no, not a dog and a cockroach. So I really felt like, because the whole series, the whole episode, I'm asking what was in the box? What did they risk their lives for? And all three of them ended up dying. What was in the box? And
teddy bears.
Teddy bears.
Wasn't it? Yeah, some fucking teddy
bears. Now, for me, at first I was kind of confused. Like, why was this? Why did they have why would they? And then it was like one of those things where they're struggling so hard to hang on to what little bit left they have of humanity. I mean, what makes us human versus a robot? And it's things like teddy bears, things like that, things that are precious to us. We're willing to risk our lives for loved ones to have in a world like that. And I thought that was so just shocking to me that, I mean, wow. I was completely blown away. And I loved, oh gosh, I'm going to have to look up her name, but the lady that was the main character, she basically was in 95% of the episode. Maxine Peake is her name. Her name on the show is Bella, and she of course was the main. There wasn't very many characters on this show, and she was the main one. And she was amazing. I thought her acting was fantastic, spectacular, just wow. I mean, she really brought you into what she was going through. And
that quiet, brave, black and white moment where she's alone. And that's what I really liked about the design of the so-called dogs, where they were so simple yet so effectively deadly, is, she's almost got this thing completely killed. She thinks it's over. She turns her back, and it does that one last dying act of putting those trackers into her. And then she's having that quiet black and white moment in front of the mirror where she's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to cut my face to get these trackers off. And then she realizes she has one right in her jugular. And, blink and you miss it. If you're trying to do anything else while you're watching the episode, you would have missed that whole twist. But that's the moment where it's just like, wow, it brings it all home, really.
Yep.
Yeah, but you also weigh part of that circumstance of her realizing that even though, those little things like you were mentioning earlier about, you want to keep your humanity, but also the anguish of knowing that at the end of the day, you're better served not being dead and being back there, to be with those people that you took those chances with, as opposed to having something sentimental. So at the end of the day, don't you have to kind of say, hey, it would be nice to keep humanity type thing going, getting the teddy bear, these things that made us feel good. But then you have to think, but am I better served being alive and being able to appreciate the things that I have in my vicinity, things that I can contribute to? Because now her dying, even though she made that sacrifice, she's definitely a loss for the people that she left.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that was kind of what was shocking to me, and the fact that why would she do this? And I guess like my take on it would be that we can't even begin to imagine what kind of state of mind you're in running and battling these kinds of things, trying to stay alive. What does that do to you? What does it do to people? I mean, 3 people were willing to go on this journey and risk their lives for this kid. And it was shocking to me. Like, I was thinking it's going to be medicine in the box, or a communications device, or a weapon, and it was teddy bears. And it was like, whoa, like, how do you have to be as a person? Like, what do you have to go through to constantly be running from these machines and watching so many people around you die, that to be able to give this to a child is worth dying for? Like, I can't imagine what kind of life you have to live. I guess as much as you're probably thinking life is precious, I guess being able to do this for this child was more precious to them. So it was
three people got lost.
3 people died.
Now,
and,
as far
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you do it. You say.
Well, I was about to actually jump, seeing as we didn't really talk too much about Archangel, but I just kind of wanted to say that I thought that episode, because Jodie Foster had directed, this particular episode, and I thought it was a pretty good episode. I kind of thought in my head, I thought that the episode was going to be leaning towards, once the young lady had discovered that her mom's been tracking her, I thought it was going to kind of end with like her mom watching her commit suicide or something. I thought that was what it was going to lead up to. But I kind of felt good that at the end of the day, she got her freedom. She hitchhiked out of there, and once again, Black Mirror leaves what happened to this young lady up to your imagination. But the one thing that really bugged me about that episode was when the young lady's mother showed up to her boyfriend while he was at work.
Yeah.
And, she called him a junkie and, stay away from her and all of this stuff. And when he sees her later, he doesn't even mention that her mom showed up. Like, that's the first thing out of my mind is, your motherfucking mom just came to my job and called me a crackhead in front of my boss. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I just don't think the odds of that not happening, you know what I mean? Like, anybody would have been like that. And I really felt bad for her but I just think that they probably should have executed that a little bit better and maybe have used that circumstance to kind of give her a hint that her mom is tracking her somehow, which would lead her to go back and, find the tablet and whatnot.
I was wondering as a teenage boy if he was kind of worried. Kind of like when someone does something bad to you and then they say, if you tell anyone, then, if you tell the police or anybody, then I'm going to kill your whole family or something. I mean, not that she was that extreme, but maybe he felt like it was implied that if he, again, I'm not supposed to talk to her daughter, period. And of course, the daughter came and talked to him, but maybe just by saying nothing, maybe he was afraid mom was watching right then and it would decrease the chances that mom would go tell the police what he had done to her daughter and all that kind of stuff if he just kind of kept his mouth shut and just tried to get away from her as fast as possible.
That doesn't work on boys. A boy would have said, your motherfucking mom came to my job. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Like, that doesn't, no. She came to your job. So, a guy is going to call that out. You know what I mean? But I see what you're saying, but I just can't, I can't reconcile you not putting her on Front Street for her mom showing up. Like, that has to happen. Like, is your mom watching now? That motherfucker came to my job and called me a crackhead. But but I thought the episode, I thought that Jodie Foster, at least tonally in the episode, I think she did a good job. And the funny thing is that they took that circumstance of the mother losing the child earlier in the episode, and she was totally devastated, and you totally buy into it. But once again, this series makes a person that you're empathetic of their situation at first, and then by the end, you're literally wanting her daughter to kill her because of all of the stuff that she was watching. And I have to ask you ladies this. Would you ever, there's no way in hell if I had kids would I want to be able to see what they're seeing. Like, you know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say. So I have to say that in this episode, I felt for the mom the entire time. And let me just tell you, as somebody with a 15-year-old, close to 16, like this main character was, I read her texts. I know where she is at all times. We have fine friends, and we give her the opportunity to tell us where she is first. Like, if she goes to a football game, and then after the football game, they go to Moe's, and then they go somewhere else, and then they end up at her friend's house for a sleepover. Every time she moves locations, she has to tell me where she is. And if she doesn't, and I have to get on my phone and look her up, her ass is in trouble. So I give her the chance to be responsible and follow the rules. But if she doesn't, and I have to look her up, she's going to get a phone call. And she doesn't want a phone call from me while she's out with her friends. So I think this is the next step for that. Now, I don't think putting a chip in somebody's brain and being able to see what they see is definitely overstepping the boundaries. But again, Yardley, like you said, because of what happened to this little girl in the beginning, I can totally understand a mom's mentality of doing something like this, because you literally live your entire life worried about them. Even when they're in front of your face, you're worried about them. It's just what you do. And it probably will never go away. You're always gonna be worried about them until you breathe your last breath. So I actually, when I was a kid, was lost from my mom for 4 hours in a warehouse type of store. And she found me sitting in a box in the TV section watching a TV. And I think, police were called. They were scouring the entire store, the parking lot, everything. She thought I was kidnapped. And this was the time when Joe Walsh's kid, well, no, this was before that, but it was around that time that kind of shit was happening. And of course it happens all the time now, but you just hear about it a lot more now versus back then. So my mom put me on a fucking leash after that. I was leashed. I have pictures of me at Astro World in Houston on a leash. Like, how sad is that? And I was like 6 years old, So I can understand, like, the lengths parents will go to make sure your kid is safe. So this mom, trusted her daughter. Her daughter, of course, was lying. She was getting into shit she shouldn't be getting into. Of course, the mom pulls the device out and decides to check at the most unopportune times. It ends up seeing the absolute worst of her behavior those times she checked versus the other times when she was just being a typical teenager. So, of course, that propelled the mom into the extremes, thinking the worst. So it's kind of a double-edged sword of, I get why she did it. It was wrong because she should have, like Moni said, had more communication with the daughter versus acting on her own. I mean, the first thing she sees when she reactivates this device after like 10 years is her having sex and talking like a porn star during sex. And she's like, that would push anybody over the edge. Why wouldn't you go and snatch that girl out of that damn van? And, why would you do the way she did it? It was so bizarre to me that...
At what point can you tell your daughter or anybody that you've implanted with this technology, like, there's never going to be a point where you're going to tell them that that's what you did and them be okay with it? Like, I think you're going to get raged on no matter what. So doesn't that leave her in a position where, do you think that eventually, just based off of what we saw from her mother as a character, do you think that she was just going to have that, not tell her about it ever, like for the rest of that young lady's life?
If she hadn't gotten busted?
Yeah.
It looked like that was the road she's going down, and I think that was wrong. I mean, look, I watch my kid like a hawk, but she knows it. She's not... I'm not pretending like I'm not. And she gets annoyed, but that's my right as her parent. She don't like it. She can get the fuck out of my house. I mean, this is the rules. You don't like me watching your ass? Get a job. Bye. This is my rules. So I don't pretend like I'm not. Like I said, I give her the opportunity to do the right thing. And if she doesn't, she gets monitored. She gets watched. That's how it works. So
if my daughters are minors who I created, who I am responsible for, who live in my house, who I pay for, they are going to know. I plan on being the same way as far as they're going to know that I'm going to check their social media when I feel like it. I'm going to check their phone when I feel like it. There's probably going to be social media they're not going to be allowed to have. There's bridges we have to cross when we get there. But on the other hand, there are very few things that I feel like are a violation of a minor child who lives in your house's privacy. Right. That being said, when you find out that your teenager is pregnant and you force feed her some, birth control pills, like morning after pills in her drink, that's a fucking violation. I mean, not that she should maybe have the choice to have a child, but she definitely should know that, hey, by the way, you're going to feel sick today because I, basically stuck something in your drink. Like, that is messed up.
Okay, y'all, I completely forgot about that. I would never in a million years do something like that. That
mom was twisted.
Holy crap. Yeah, that was messed up. It was like she was the man instead of her parent.
Acting like the whole thing was the boyfriend's fault. Your daughter was the one on top of him talking like a porn star when you tuned in. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so
it wasn't like you saw your daughter getting raped, actually, held down or anything like that.
But even then, you tell a person, this poor girl had no idea what was happening to her. I mean, that's kind of fucked. I completely forgot about that. That's messed up. I would never do something like that. She was Yeah, really passive aggressively parenting instead of, I mean, your kid deserves to, yeah, you're going to be a Gustavo about it, but you don't have to, you still need to have communication. And she had none. Like, she didn't say a word. And I think that was her own, like, guilty conscience of actually reactivating the device, which I wouldn't feel guilty. She lied. She went somewhere else with a guy. You're 16. You think you know everything, but you don't. And as messed up as having a device like that is, she had it. And I can't say that if I was a parent, I wouldn't do the same thing. Now, that's where it stops, because I would not do the rest of what she did. That's just not the kind of type of parenting I do. But yeah.
Well, and then the censoring, not knowing even as a child that barking semi-scary dogs exist, not knowing that people cry at funerals, that's pretty, like, what kind of bubble do you want this kid to live in? She's going to be like a stunted human being. It's so messed up.
Well, I think that's what the ending is basically. All of that cumulative censoring is what ended up on her demise. Like, her daughter attacked her because she didn't grow up with the type of typical, any kind of bad or negative situation. She didn't know how to handle herself because she's never had been exposed to anything like that. So Exactly. She didn't know how to handle the point of her mom doing the things that she was doing because her mom censored her whole life, and then she ends up trying to kill her. So it's like, yeah, I would assume that might be a reaction, having not been exposed to anything bad or negative in your life.
Yeah.
Also, really quick before we move on to another episode, I read an interview with Jodie Foster about the actress who plays Sarah, who's the daughter. Brenna Harding is her name. She's from Australia. I thought she was amazing. And she literally she's done nothing. Jodie Foster handpicked her and was just saying that Brenna was just hands down Sarah. Like, she knew from the second she saw her audition that this was Brenna. She wanted the girl to be pretty but unassuming, like what you would think a girl in the circumstance would be. Somebody who would get caught up with what she was caught up with. And
that's interesting.
It was really, you could probably find it online. Maybe I'll post a link about Jodie Foster talking about this character, because she said out of all the characters, this was she really, really wanted to nail this one who played her. And just how proud she was of the pick. And it probably will potentially really up this girl's career, I would think, being handpicked by Jodie Foster. So, I thought, yeah, it was a great episode. So, do y'all want me to, we'll just get through to mine. We already talked about Metalhead, which was, of course, one of my favorites. I have to say, my favorite episode was Black Museum, the last episode. I loved it because it was almost like a finale to so many other episodes throughout all the seasons. I saw references to Hated in the Nation, which is Robot from Hated in the Nation, the bees that attack, whoever gets chosen, which is one of my standouts of the entire series for me. The tablet from Archangels in there. You see the first systems before San Junipero with the bear, when the lady gets downloaded into the bear. And White Christmas, another, again, consciousness being downloaded into a device. And then White Bear, where they wipe clean your consciousness and make you repeat over and over and over again if you're a criminal, kind of like what the abuse of convicts, I guess you could say, in that episode. There were just so many throwbacks to all the episodes, and I loved that because all the episodes are separate and different in their own little worlds, and this one just kind of scooped it all up, all the concepts and all the technology, and put it in one. And it was three different episodes, in 3 different stories in one episode, basically. So I thought it was literally the core of the entire Black Mirror series.
Yeah, I would agree with that, for sure.
And there were 3 stories: the doctor who ended up loving pain, the couple who share a mind after tragedy, the convict stuck forever, and a hologram that people can then come and torture over and over again. And I just loved how each episode was, again, tied to different episodes, and how you could take that technology and refer it back to different ones. So the doctor who loved pain is the guy who could put on a special cap and feel the pain of his patients. But then, of course, the twisted part is that he grows to only be able to feel, I guess, sexually aroused. Yeah, unless he feels pain. So that, of course, turns not so great for him. And then you've got the couple who are really madly in love and have a baby, and she gets hit by a car and is in a coma, and they are offered the opportunity to download her, kind of like the San Junipero, but it would be like the beginnings of that, which they even reference that it would be, it's the beginnings of that technology. And then the convict, again, another time where they've taken the consciousness of this man that was executed and put him in a hologram, as in a cell, a jail cell, like in a museum, where people can torture him over and over. So it was just a really good, it was dark. I loved the ending with the daughter when she turns out to be, which I don't want to say because Yardley hasn't seen, but who the girl turns out to be, which I just blew it for Yardley. But anyway, she ends up being the convict's daughter, and her revenge was fabulous. And I just thought it was great. And have any of you guys noticed that there's one song throughout the entire series that gets played, kind of peppered in and out of different episodes, that I Only Have Eyes for You, that old song? I
didn't notice that. I thought they were singing a song about remembering something. I can't remember.
That one, there's always something there to
remind me. That's
yes,
it.
But there's another song that gets played quite a bit in all the different series. I guess it's the Stude's favorite, the director. I don't know, but
I know the song. I didn't realize that. I don't think I ever picked up that it's been played throughout.
In the episode where White Christmas, where he tells the guy tells his story about his girl or his wife that ends up having the baby, and she blocks him. In the karaoke bar, she sings it. And then in the one where it's the soldiers and their brain is being programmed to see certain people as monsters. One of the characters, the girl character, who's the farmer, who's the tracker, sings it. It's like weird. It's peppered all over the place. And I think it's even in, a reason why I brought that up is I think it's in the Black Christmas episode, Black Museum. So anyway, I really loved that one. Apparently a lot of people do, because it's even, I believe, it is got higher ratings than even US. Yeah, it's got the highest ratings. Oh no, Hang the DJ does by 1 point, 9 point. It got a 9.0. Black Museum got a 8.9. So USS Callister got an 8.5. So overall, I have to say, I mean, we pretty much talked about every episode. Yeah, we did. Yeah. So that's good. Before we end, I wanted to ask each of you, Yardley, what are your standout episodes from the entire series? Like, what are your favorites?
I would probably have to say, for me, like with you, the national anthem one, it was just so outrageous, and some of it was just so stupid. I asked myself, I'm like, would I fuck a pig,
Save a
And
life.
I'm like, you're dying like a motherfucker. I'm not gonna fuck a pig. I'm just not. You're gonna have to take one for the team. I still love you, and I don't think that I would ask you to do that for me because it's just so ridiculous. But that one really stuck out to me. So in my consciousness, that's gonna always be one of my favorites because that would kind of set the tone for the series. San Junipero was pretty cool. I'm going to put that up there as one of my top ones, mainly because one of the things that I got out of that, looking at some of the characters, the character of Kate to me, where at the end we seemingly think that, this transition might be something that could work out. But I think based off of the character and what the character gave me is I know that eventually in that type of fraternity, Kate is going to get bored and it's not going to work out in the end. And Crocodile. I would have to say that those are my top three because I just really, for some reason, Crocodile was just one of those things where kind of the moral is just that, telling a huge lie is something that can get bigger and bigger over time, and something that could have been settled in a lesser way earlier had you just owned up to what you did. It just showed how this woman literally turned into a monster by the end of the episode. So I would have to say that those are my top three, and as for now, I'm just going to keep riding with them.
Okay. Moni, what would you go with?
Hang the DJ, San Junipero, National Anthem is the haunting one, as we've mentioned, but I want to throw in Nosedive, which was the one that is Bryce Dallas Howard is the star of. I don't know, that one hit a real note with me. It was very clever, very well done, and I feel like that's the world we're going towards, where everything has to be rated and reviewed, and eventually including ourselves as human beings. And through a series of unfortunate events, basically her social media ratings start going down, and of course she starts getting desperate, which causes them to go down even further. And I just thought that really struck a chord, and that Bryce Dallas Howard did a really great job playing this sort of beginning, like kind of a Stepford type that just really gets hers, but then you kind of feel sorry for her too. And as a side note too, that one was written by Rashida Jones. She was one of the writers. I thought that was kind of an interesting celebrity collaboration on top of being a really great, well done episode.
Yeah, I would say I absolutely have to agree with you on Nosedive. It definitely was one, and I can never remember the name of it. Like, my daughter has to tell me. I got my daughter hooked on these shows. And I'm like, what's that one with the social? She's like, Nosedive. And like, I got a good synopsis from her, and she said that she's living this basically. I mean, and you're on Snapchat, you're on Instagram, and you don't get enough likes, you need to delete that picture. Like, it's do or die now in school that your social media has the right aesthetic. That's her words, and enough people are liking it, and they even have now created Finstagram accounts, which is where they can be their real selves, that they post the pictures on and have people vote which picture should go on their main Instagram account. I mean, we're really getting close. I mean, this is she was like, this is a very, very realistic expectation in their heads. I mean, she got all her friends watching it. They all agreed with her that that episode is probably the most likely in the future than any of the ones that they had seen. So I really stood out for me too, and that's why I even asked them in the first place, because that's my job, is to get people and get businesses and entertainment people's social media presence built. Right. And because, let's be honest, if you're following a celebrity or if you're looking for a business, what's the first thing you do? You go on their social media pages. And if they don't look like they're kept and they don't look right, you're not going to probably give them a chance. So really is clearly where we're heading, unless we somehow just get so sick of it, we wipe it out. So, but definitely, and I love her. I love her. I loved her in The Village, And I loved her in Lady in the Water. M. Night Shyamalan clearly loves her because he's always casting her in his movies. But I just love her. And San Junipero was my absolute favorite. I think everybody loves the concept of never really dying. Like taking... I mean, you can. I mean, if they don't want to be in San Junipero, they don't have to be. And if they want to get out, I'm pretty sure you could. Like, you could just say, wipe me out of here. But it's kind of a comfort. I think that's why one of the reasons why so many people like it is that there's that we may never, we could live forever. They could live forever in this little 80s town, and I would not choose the 80s as my decade to live forever in, though. I can tell you that right now. But I'd probably choose the 90s. But it was great. I loved the relationship between the two, the total opposites, and just watching Kelly eventually decide to stay with her after spending how many years with her husband, and him dying. But in the end, feeling like this was a relationship she wanted to stick with was really great. I love a good ending, so I loved San Junipero as well. I Hated a Nation, of course, as a standout because it's just so shocking. The bees basically vote who had the worst week, I'm assuming, and somebody has hacked because we're ruining our ecosystem, so they create these robot bees to do a bee's job and send them off. Well, somebody's hacked into them and is programming the bees to whatever person has voted the hated that week, or however, I don't remember how long, I think it's a week. At their face is the bee's hive, so the bee bores into their brain and kills them or puts them in a perpetual state of pain. And just at the end, I thought, wow, because the people that actually played the game and voted were the overall victims of the story. The people that participated in this voting turned around and became the victims. And we're talking about, 400,000 people dying at the end because they had chosen to get on here and so casually vote the death of somebody,
Yeah.
So that one was kind of shocking for me. And then White Bear, I really liked. Again, you've got a convict being abused because, nobody can feel sorry for a girl that helped murder a child, but it's hard not to because she just truly doesn't even know what's going on. She doesn't know that she committed this murder, and she's being hunted, and people are following her around with cameras, and she doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And then at the end to find out that everybody who was helping you was an actor and you're just being programmed over and over and over again to wake up in this space that you don't know what's going on and be hunted was very shocking. So again, something that could absolutely be a reality someday. So those were my favorites. Anybody else have one that stuck out to them that they want to mention?
No.
No? Are we done?
Not I.
Yardley, did I put you to sleep?
No, I'm good. I think everything's been covered pretty well.
Okay, great. Yeah, I love the show. I'm so glad we got to talk about it. And we're good. We're a good hour and 40 minutes, so I guess we'll hang this one up. But I would like to ask you guys, if you're listening on iTunes, shamelessly ask you to go in and leave us a review so that we can show up on the actual rating system for iTunes. And feel free to follow us on Podbean as well. That's our home program. So either one. Well,
also, Chrissy, just make note. If you're in iTunes, the star rating is even more important than the review. You don't.
Yes.
The review is something that's extra, but just give us a star rating. That's probably the most important. If you want to say a few, hopefully, kind words about the show, feel free to do that. But if you like the show, we would definitely love, because the more ratings that we get, the higher up we get pushed in the iTunes rating, and we actually want to kind of get to a point where we're in the new and noteworthy. And if we get it increases our chances once we start getting in the, the 50s, the hundreds of reviews or whatever. But if you have time, just click that star rating, and we definitely appreciate it.
Also, I wanted to put out there that on top of reviewing shows and movies, we also discuss real life, real reality subjects, and I'm open to anybody reaching out and telling us their story of anything strange that happened. Did you see a UFO? Did you encounter a ghost? I mean, anything crazy. You can send us an email at thecreepinitrealshow@gmail.com, or you can literally just message us in one of the many social media platforms we have, and they're all looked up under The Creepin' It Real Show. And Yardley, how can people find you?
Hey, you can follow me across all platforms at militant_martyr.
And Moni?
I am Rebel Moni on Twitter, and I am Moni Bear on Instagram. And I also want to mention a little preview for next week. If you guys want to watch along with us, we will be reviewing Jeepers Creepers 3. So if you were a fan of the first movie, probably you weren't a fan of the second movie, because who is? But, you may have a differing opinion. Watch along this week as we review the third movie. And also, I'm going to try to go to a haunted location, information TBD, this week, and I will let you guys know about that if that happens next week as well.
Awesome. And I would like to really quick pour one out for our homie Moni's Nana passed this last, was it week ago?
It was the 26th, the day after Christmas.
And so I would just like to pour one out for her and
Absolutely.
Tell Moni that we're very sorry and we love her. And we're also very, very happy and thankful for all of you listeners out there. And thank you for giving us the support. We're excited about 2018 and what shows we can bring you this year.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
So with that, I bid my co-hosts a farewell, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Absolutely.
If God were alive, He'd burn us to the ground. Then back on the Mayflower, He'd follow us around. And I have some tales, 2 stories to tell, about the rise and fall, how heaven fell. And here comes the clown, out of the clouds. I mean it, 'cause I did.